When we tell you you can make money with portfolio EV with no learning curve and no real time commitment, we're telling you the truth. And we got Colton here with us, Colton Heisey, who had tweeted at our friend Greg Ehrenberg, who's doing a $100 bankroll challenge over on Twitter, turned 100 into, I think, 650 now since the start of the NBA season, and just keeps accruing profit. And Colton had tweeted at Greg not more than a few days ago, mentioning that he had turned, I don't know what he turned it into, but he had $13,000 in profit over the first 40 days of using OddsShopper Portfolio EV. And he was kind enough to grace us with his presence, kind of break it down for everybody out there who may be new to the tool, thinking about using the tool, to get it some insight into how not Greg or I do it, but how someone who just started using the tool not longer than a month ago has had pretty significant profits just following how we've laid out all of the steps over there at OddsShopper. Colton, appreciate you joining us, man. Really do.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and happy to talk about this and just help anyone else out there who's thinking about using the tool but not really sure how to get started.
So you had mentioned to me before we started recording this at all that you had come across Greg's bankroll challenge and kind of wanted to, check some boxes off and everything and do a little bit of vetting yourself before deciding to dive in, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I found him like I think it was like probably day 2 or 3 of his bankroll challenge. And obviously you see all the stuff on Twitter. There's a million guys out there who are not legit.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to kind of follow along with his because obviously he's connected with some of the DFS stuff, and obviously he's been profitable on other things outside of the bankroll challenge. So that was all interesting to me. Followed along for probably 5 or 6 days, and just made sure that those lines were lines that were also available to me, and that he wasn't getting things like pre line movement. And so once I saw that I was able to get the lines that he was getting and everything kind of checked out there, I decided to get the portfolio EV and pay the fee for the month and just test it out for a month. I kind of gave myself a month trial, like, hey, this is kind of worth this to at least try it for a month, see if we can at least make that. And I think it says online that if you don't make your money back, you can get your money back. So I was like, oh, they probably wouldn't put that out there if this wasn't a legit tool.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
another thing too is like the way I always look at this, because I've been using Portfolio EV, OddsShopper Premium before it was Portfolio EV, and I've always looked at this as something where, like, I've seen how everything is done. I'm with OddsShopper, but for someone on the outside, it definitely takes a little bit of trust to be like, all right, I'm going to start using these plays that are recommended to me by this tool. Obviously, it's a market-based approach, right? You're identifying the sharp sources, getting the true odds and all of that stuff. But I'm gonna take a leap of faith here and do what is suggested on how to make money. I think it's tough for people, and maybe not for you. So you'll give myself a month. I think a lot of people have a tough time just being like, all right, I'm going to bet all of these. There's no real analysis on these plays because it's all like straight market-based bets.
Correct.
And I think people have a hard time. I think all of us, just human nature, we're wired to where, like, oh, you're just telling me to mass enter 20 of these bets right now without any of analysis.
For
Do
sure.
you know what I mean?
No, absolutely. Especially when the public is convinced that like you're built to lose.
Exactly.
And so it's really hard for people to commit to that. But like, so I'm kind of like nerdy on the math side of things. So the plus EV stuff was kind of what did it for me because I assume, and I don't know what everything you guys have is based on, but like I know what like the Kelly criterion is. And so like there's just things that came across that like, and I've played some poker. So like the plus EV stuff was very interesting to me, because obviously any time in the gambling world when you can get things plus EV, like that's where you want to be. And so it was just kind of testing the app, and testing that out to see if that all kind of matched up with the things that I knew, even though they weren't tested with your guys' product yet.
For sure. And so, yeah, like you have some background in this, and you know that when you're
Yeah.
getting plus EV bets over time, you're going to profit. And I think you see a lot of times people are like, oh, I had 2 bad days.
Yeah.
Something, it must not work or this or that. but you
Right.
realize like you're trying to get the volume down, trying to as much volume down as possible, beat the
Correct.
variance, and then you start seeing that. I mean, you turned what 13. Let me ask you this: how many books did you start off with? And you don't have to give me an exact number, but I do want to help
Yeah.
people understand a little bit. What starting bankroll were you around?
So I started at about 2,500 bankroll.
Wow.
And I started in Florida. And we only have Hard Rock down here. So when I started there, I was pretty I was slightly limited. Um, and it's funny, so I actually got limited to $50 maxes within like a week
Oh, yeah, it'll
on
happen.
Hard
Yeah.
Rock. Yeah, for sure.
But it's
And
still there's
then
still more than enough bets I've seen. I don't have Hard Rock, but
oh,
I know Hard Rock, the tool has more than enough Hard Rock bets to where like $50 is actually pretty manageable.
yeah, 100%. And like, I mean, I think yesterday I think I had about 130 bets out yesterday. I think
Yeah.
I made like 840 yesterday. I mean, the bankroll's up to like, I mean, it's maxed out here, so I have it set at 5K right now because anything else kind of raises everything above the max. So I have it set at 5K now just because I can't really get anything more in than that. Um, and so like the volume still gets in, but like my max wager is limited here. But I was back in Pennsylvania last week, so I had 7 days in Pennsylvania last week, and that was I had 7 different books going, which was great.
Yeah. Would you
And
say, and
so
you probably weren't limited on a lot of those books yet either,
no,
which is
I
huge.
wasn't. I'm not limited at all.
Yeah.
Just in the week of being there, though, I got limited on Sugar House and Bet Rivers.
Well, Sugar
Uh,
House will just
a hundred
they'll throw
percent.
the hammer down in days. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was there for 3, 4 days, and I mean, I just kind of divvied up like a 10K bankroll because I mean, we've built it to that at this point. So I divvied that up among the 7 books based on the volume I was seeing on the app. And so like Sugar House, I only had like $500 in there because there wasn't nearly as much volume as some of the others. And they still limited me. I think I mean, in the week of being there, I profited like 4,700 or 5,200. Yeah,
That's great. Those small books
crazy.
are you get in and get out for sure. Well,
Yeah.
were you profitable? So, like when you were just using Hard Rock, were you still making profit with the initial
Oh,
$2,500 bankroll?
yeah, 100%. Still profitable down here just with one app. I mean, yesterday,
That's
like I said,
crazy.
we had like 130 bets out. I think we made like 840 yesterday. It was like 13.5% ROI or
And
something.
that's with like $50 limits per bet.
Yeah, for sure.
Are you betting mostly just straight bets, straight props?
Yeah, I mean, it's what's on there. I mean, Hard Rock doesn't really get anything else.
No, like are you parlaying them? Or are you betting them as
Oh no,
singles?
no, I'm just betting them all as singles. I'm strictly using just like the main sportsbook EV side, and especially having one app down in Florida, like I'm not able to use the arbitrage side or anything like that right now because
And
there's only one.
since are you using the bet size recommendations for like you
Yeah.
talk about Kelly criterion? So what you're doing
Mhm.
is you're just setting your bankroll a little bit lower to get reasonable bet size recommendations on each bet.
Correct. And then obviously if my bankroll is technically higher than what I have it set at, so if there's a high volume day, I can still just continue to keep rolling.
That's crazy that I mean genuinely I with just Hard Rock in
Yeah.
Florida because I get that question all the time. People
Mhm.
DMing like I only have Hard Rock or I only have this. I guess your answer would be that's fine.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and honestly, starting at like a smaller bankroll is probably going to allow you to just stay there a little longer above, like under those limits without getting limited. Um, I mean, I probably jumped in a little too high. Probably could have kept myself alive for I don't know. I don't know how
Like
long it'll
fly
last
under
on
the
there, but
radar a little bit.
couple more, yeah, just a
Yeah.
couple more weeks or so.
You got to start
Uh,
betting some wild touchdown props or something.
right. Yeah. Well, so it's funny. My girlfriend and I every night we put in a $5 anytime goal score and point score hockey parlays
Yeah,
on our account,
you
so
have to.
which is nice. So that yeah, it gets a little bit of that.
Yeah, they go,
All
"Oh,
the ne
this guy's a dummy," right? And then you
yeah,
just
they
keep
got give them some negative EV stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So, were you did you build portfolios out at first, or since you only had Hard Rock, like how did you go about the process when you first jumped in and started using the tool?
So when I jumped in, I like so Fliff is like one of the like social books
Hmm.
down here, and so like that pops up on mine. So at first I didn't really know how to eliminate that out, but then I kind of figured out how to create the portfolio. But so that I actually had downloaded that, and then I realized it wasn't really worth my time, um, just in terms of like logistics. And so what's weird too with Hard Rock is I have to manually do everything. So when I got back to PA, it was a hell of a lot easier being able to like auto these things and just hit it and it pops up for you. We're down here, like, I mean, so I'm home most of the days, like currently. And so I'll keep my iPad up and like I'll just walk by and if 15 are on there, like I'll manually enter them and like whatever. I'll get out of the gym, I'll take a look at it and enter 15, whatever's on there. And so it is a little time consuming, more time consuming than like if you're in a state that has multiple apps, but it's still super doable. Like, I mean, with technology now, like, I mean, it'll take me to get 15 of them in. Once you kind of know what you're doing, I mean, it doesn't take me more than 15 minutes.
So, like when you were in Pennsylvania, you got to experience the mass entry tool for Caesars, BetMGM,
Yeah,
DraftKings,
it
Fam.
was,
It's a you're talking about leaving the gym. Um, I work out from home, but I'll be
yeah,
sitting there after a set, and I'll just pull up the mass entry tool, and it's like, all right,
yeah,
5 bets.
Bink, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. No,
And
it's nice, but it's cool to hear somebody that had been mainly operating on one book. Now you said you're a caddy for the tour, right? When
mhm.
you if you're a say, or even just in Pennsylvania, you're doing anything. You had mentioned this to me before we started. Um, how often are you placing bets from like a phone or from a computer? Because I've gotten to a point where I just place all of my bets, like 100% of my bets from my phone now through portfolio.
Yeah, I really, unless I'm here at the house, like, but not my iPad is only up solely so I can make it quicker when I enter them on my phone, but they're still all entered from my phone. I just have it logged in on there, so, like, if I see so whenever I place a bet, I hide it, so that way any bet that I haven't bet shows up in, like, the full, like,
Yep.
bright lights, so that way everything that I've already bet is hidden. And so it just darkens it, so I can still see it. It's still there. So, like, say I see something jump to the top of the screen, and I might have bet it at -115, and it's now +105, or like the true odds changed, whatever. It pops to the top, so I might need to reload on it because the EV's gone up. So
You
like,
you I mean 2,500 to 13,000 in profit over the course of what would we say, like 40 days, you said, or something like that?
yeah, probably 40 to 45 days, and there was probably a week of that where I was in Georgia, so I had access to nothing, and then there was a week in PA where I had access to 7 books, but the rest has just been one singular book.
My guess is you didn't expect it to like take off that quick. Were you And what I mean by that is like there's going to be lulls and there's going to be high points. It's just the way
Mhm.
betting works. But generally, you're looking for that consistent upward trajectory, like that consistent
Correct.
positive, and that's what you see with this. If you just continue to get volume down, which is amazing that you can get that much down with Hard Rock. Do
Yeah.
you filter out the negative HROI bets, or do you bet anything?
I haven't filtered out the negative HRI, but I'm only betting anything over like 2.5%.
Got it. Okay, so 2.5% EV or odd
Yeah,
shop. Got it.
2.5% EV, and it has to be at least a 2 OS rating.
All right, there we go. Okay, yeah, I'm trying to drill down into some of the way you've done it because
Yeah,
it's, yeah, it's an insane profit.
yeah,
All right, so 2.5, and then anything over odd shopper rating of 2. So you'd still even consider like negative HROI spots if it's just showing up as a positive EV bet, given how far off it is from the rest of the market. Then,
correct.
yep, it makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, and obviously, like, because the market may be just in one of the lulls that it's like you're gonna
Yep.
experience. So, like, if it's not deep enough into the season and that the HRI has only been bet 5 times or whatever it is, like, that's obviously gonna bounce back if it's plus EV, so
Yeah, and that's why it's nice to be able to toggle between like previous season HROI and current.
right.
because I just saw one flip the other day. I think it was FanDuel points on an NBA was negative. It was like -3, and now it's up into the positives. And so it's just, yeah, the way it goes. And for anybody out there watching that might be new, would highly recommend you go in and tweak your portfolios and just see how they're doing. See how some of the bets that you may have eliminated are doing now, like the historical ROI, or the ones that you haven't eliminated are doing. Because I constantly make tweaks. I assume you go in and look at that stuff as well. I just want to make sure that, as you said, as the season progresses, like, am I missing out on really good bets that have turned positive? That's one way you definitely don't want to miss out.
Yeah, for sure. And
Hey,
yeah, I
man,
mean,
go
I
ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna say, yeah, I make like small changes to my stuff, and I mean, just making sure that if you are starting like with a small bankroll and try like what Greg is doing, just trying to make sure that you update your bankroll daily makes a huge difference and like helps eliminate some of those lulls.
Yeah, and it's the compounding returns too. Like, I
Yeah,
know Greg is putting his entire bankroll back into, into circulation every day, and you start
right.
to see that compound. It gets a little bit more difficult to do something like that as, as books start limiting you, even if it's not super tight limits, and also as your bankroll grows. Like, it's a lot harder to get 30,000 down a day than it is to get 500. But
100%.
yeah, but at that point, you're still getting good money down anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Right. Yeah, I mean, especially if you've already compounded that, and like, so if you happen to lose 8% of your bankroll at 30,000, but that's all profit to begin with, like
Right.
you're obviously you're gonna get that back, like
Yeah,
that plus EV stuff. So
I've seen some lulls. I've seen you see, and then but then when you zoom out and you look at the graph, like on Picket or something, it's just, it might be like this, but it's a steady movement up, and that's all that matters. And I think once people understand that and start to trust that, like, you're not just betting random stuff.
yeah,
You're betting stuff that actually is off from the market and off from the true odds, and you're beating the true odds. Um, it'll take you a long way in understanding any of that. But hey, Colton, really appreciate you jumping on, man. I think all of us were really excited to see the success you've had with this as well, and so many other people that have had just like quick success out of the gate. Appreciate you reaching out to us and doing this. Anything else you wanted to add, just with your experience and everything, before we get out of here?
yeah. So I mean, like for me, it was funny because like I got in at like it must have been one of the hottest weeks that Greg's had. Like my ROI the first week and a half, I think was like 22.5%, which was
Yeah, it's
like
insane.
absurd.
It's nuts.
Yeah, it was nuts. So like obviously I kind of knew a lull was coming, and I got a little bit of it, but not terrible. I mean, I'm literally at this morning when I updated all the bet trackers and everything, I'm at 9.99% ROI,
Which is a
and
massive number. Yeah,
which is crazy. So, I mean, when you can do better with your money than like certain stock portfolios and things like that, it's like, all right, well, at least I know my money's in the right place here.
for sure. And it's also it's different too. Like, even if the S&P was returning 9%, 9% with compounding returns, where you're putting it like,
Correct.
that's so much different than like, oh,
100%.
good, I got 9% on Apple. You know what I mean? It's not,
Right.
people don't get that, how different that those two percentages are. So
Correct.
I mean, and you've
Yeah.
seen it. You're firsthand experience. But anyway, you're going to the Panthers game, going to have a few drinks,
Yeah.
celebrate those portfolio EV wins, man.
Absolutely. It's just there's nothing worse than when we have to go to a Cats game and I got like Sam Reinhart and half the team's under in shots on goal. So I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, it's such a good, yeah. But you know what? I guess it's a double-edged sword, because the last thing you want is like the over on them as well, because then if they lose and they all go under, it's a double
Yeah.
loss.
Absolutely.
At least if the Panthers lose, there's a very good chance that all of your unders hit, and then you walk
Yeah.
out
Well,
being like, okay,
yeah. Or we just shoot it 18 times, score 4 of them, and get a dub.
that's actually a good call. Yeah. Yeah. Just have like a 40% save percentage for the opposing goalie, and you're in
Yeah.
business. All
Yeah.
right, dude.
Great.
Appreciate you. Go have some fun, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah. Appreciate you having me on. Go Birds.
Yeah. Go Birds, baby.